Hello and welcome back to Triumph After Abuse. I took some time away as I'm dedicating this to my good friend Sean Mahaffey. He passed away suddenly a couple of months ago, and it was very difficult for me. I don't really know why. Spent a great deal of time with him and his roommate over the last many years. I love them both. He was a really good guy, super special. Had a long conversation with him 4 days before he passed away. And he was in a really great mood. And I'm really glad I got to speak with him. And it's very sad. He wasn't very old. None of us are very old, are we? Anyway, I dedicate this episode number 4 to him. Today is Family Friday. It also happens to be my mother's birthday. And as you've found out from prior episodes, she chose to leave this realm September 11th, 1992, due to abusive circumstances in her life. Excuse me. Anyway, so let's get started, shall we? This is, I don't really know what to call it, but I guess in my family, this is sort of one side of tragic circumstances. This would be about my great-grandparents, my father's mother's parents. So, it's pretty sad. Had a family reunion very short time ago. So if people didn't attend this, you can listen to the paperwork that we got at the reunion. My lovely cousin Lynn sent it to a lot of people, and I'm certainly glad she sent it to me, and I appreciate it. And I haven't seen this, so I declined to read it until I was here with you. So let's get started reading this history that's pretty tragic. I've heard little bits and pieces and little snippets of story, never knew what was true or how maybe exaggerated it was or anything like that. So my great-grandparents' name were Thomas and Minnie Foster. Her maiden name was Partridge, and they're from England. Thomas Foster, 1873 to 1919. And I'm going to read the little headings of each of them when we get to it. On the morning of Wednesday, June 11th, 1919, neighbors of Thomas Foster, his wife Minnie, and their 6 children were awakened by the sounds of a violent argument coming from the Foster home at 15 Stainsbury Street, Bethnal Green in East London, followed by a frightening scream. It had been a tempestuous 15 years of marriage, and throughout their married life, Thomas, who had a vicious temper and worked as a chairmaker, had been a very heavy drinker, and when drunk was often violent toward his wife. Even in Bethnal Green, Foster's mistreatment of his wife was conspicuous. The abuse. Thomas and Minnie were married in St. Mark's Church, Victoria Park East, Poplar London, England in 1904. They had 7 children, but one child, Roland, who was born in 1913, died in 1915 of scarlet fever. The other 6 children had memories of Roland crying in his high chair, his face red from fever and begging for water. It hadn't been a happy marriage, but their children were loved and cared for by their mother. Stan remembered as an adult that when he was a very young boy, he and his brothers happily walked with their father to a market to sell a chair that his father Thomas had made. In 1917, Minnie applied for a separation from her husband, but a court missionary persuaded her to go back on account of the children. On May 31st, 1919, when Thomas threw plates at Minnie, cutting her and knocking her down, she summoned him for assault. On June 7th, 1919, he knocked her down again and made her nose bleed. Her May 31st summons was heard on June 9th, 1919, just a couple of days before, and was granted. However, the magistrate urged her to go back on account of the children. And, as in 1917, she returned to the marriage. Upon her return, Thomas, 46, swore that he would give up drinking and work at their marriage. He surprised his neighbors when they saw him sober and taking a stroll with Minnie on the evening of June 10th, 1919. Unfortunately, his turning over of a new leaf lasted a very short while. Sadly, she may have lived if she had not caved in. Minnie faithfully retracted the summons after he groveled his way back into her life with promises of better behavior. However, the acrimonious marriage only grew worse until he silenced her once and for all. The murder. On that Wednesday morning, a neighbor heard Thomas yell, Min, you've been a wicked woman. You made me go out yesterday, and all the people stared at me. You have worked me up to this and made me have a slur on my name. Now I have killed you. As neighbors went to investigate what the commotion was, Thomas ran out of the house, and as he made his escape, a female neighbor was able to stop him, and others held him until the policemen arrived. When the officer entered the house, he found Minnie lying on the bed in her nightgown, with her throat cut from ear to ear, still protectively clutching her youngest child in her arms. Although the child was unhurt, Minnie was dead, her throat cut savagely by the blood-stained razor found on the floor. She died in a few minutes. There were also incised cuts on her arm, wrist, and shin as though she attempted to defend herself. Minnie was just 33 years old. The arrest. At the police station, Foster said, I guess I won't be making any more chairs. I wish I had gone away from her before I should have done this to her. He said that he remembered nothing of it, and that he would have never done such a thing if he were in his right sense. I just want to say that a lot of this information was taken from newspaper clippings in England. The trial. Minnie's father, James Partridge, a gunmaker of Pearson Street, Shoreditch, acknowledged that the couple had been unhappy through Thomas's drinking. He said his daughter was a sober woman. He last saw Minnie alive on Saturday, June 7th, but she did not make any complaint to him. He failed to answer several questions put by the coroner, Dr. Wynne Westcott, who remarked he had told a different story to the police in an earlier statement he had made. James said he was an old man and could not remember. The court suspected he changed his story because he had been threatened, but Partridge denied this. He was reported to have said that 5 years ago things got worse between the couple, and eventually, after the birth of their youngest child, His daughter left her husband for 3 weeks in 1917, owing to his cruelty. Partridge had accompanied his daughter when she applied for a separation order at Old Street Police Court, and the magistrate advised her to make it up with her husband. He said that he had on several occasions seen Foster assault his daughter. On May 31st, Minnie had told him that she was assaulted by Thomas and that she was going to apply for a summons against him for assault with a view to obtaining a separation. On the Saturday evening before her death, she told her father that the summons had been granted. Young James Foster, Minnie's 13-year-old son, gave corroborative evidence, testifying that his father was drunk on Saturday night and threw some plates at his mother, who held up a washing board to stop him. Jim was described in the media as an intelligent little fellow. He went on to say, "My father and mother did not live very happily, as my dada often knocked my mother about. The last time I saw my dada knocked my mother about was last Saturday night between 10 and 11 o'clock, and when he threw some plates at her and cut her in the neck. My mother ran away from him into the street. On Wednesday morning at 7 o'clock, I was in bed upstairs when I heard my dada shout and use very bad words. I got out of bed and was going downstairs when I heard my dada call her a wicked woman. I heard him touch my mother, and I ran back into my bedroom. Shortly afterward, I heard him say that now he had killed my mother. He came out of my mother's bedroom and went into the kitchen. I ran downstairs to my mother's room and saw her laying on the bed. I went to look for a policeman, and 2 came back with me. My mother was a good mother to us all. A neighbor heard Jim cry out, 'Oh, Dad, you have killed Mom.'" Tried before Mr. Justice Avery at the Old Bailey just a fortnight after the murder, Foster claimed he had killed his wife because she led an immoral life as a prostitute. This was shown to be untrue, as all the evidence suggested, and besides being a faithful wife, Minnie Foster was a decent, hard-working woman and a good mother to all of her children. Foster did not deny the killing, but his defense claimed he was mentally unstable at the time of the murder. He claimed that there was a history of insanity in the family, with several family members previously incarcerated in mental institutions. He maintained he was mentally unstable at the time of the attack, but the prosecution could find no evidence of his family insanity claims or a motive other than anger at the separation order that his wife had been issued a few weeks before, which she retracted when he offered to change his way. The jury dismissed his claims of insanity after hearing evidence of his stable mental state from a prison doctor. The doctor had seen only the effects of hard drinking and found no signs of insanity. Thomas had finally told a prison doctor that he knew his accusations against his wife were not true, and that he only believed them when he was drinking, and found It was further noted that Thomas Foster had been sober when he killed Minnie Foster. So how can that be true if he only believed it when he was drinking? The doctors at the prison found he was evidently very fond of his children, and his greatest concern before he died was about the uncertain future of his children. He was found guilty with a verdict of willful murder and sentenced to death. He received no recommendation to mercy, and his appeal was dismissed. Upon being sentenced to death, he made no remark. He was executed on July 31st, 1919. 20 days, tried, executed. John Ellis and Edward Taylor were the executioners on the day that the 46-year-old was hanged in Pentonville. Thomas served for Britain in World War I, 1914 to 1918, and was a demobilized soldier after the war ended. This meant he had been released from service and sent home. It had been a brutal war, often fought hand-to-hand, face-to-face in the trenches. Perhaps, in Thomas's defense, dealing with the trauma of the war may have led to his excessive drinking and resulting anger and rage, of which Minnie became a target. Today we would probably call it post-traumatic stress disorder. The settlement. When Foster was arrested, he gave £50 to the maternal grandfather, James Partridge, and a sister of Minnie's, Aunt Alice, who lived with her father, for the maintenance of the children. A collection was also made for them by friends and neighbors. James Partridge took the children in temporarily, and Aunt Alice was willing to keep Jim entirely. Aunt Louie had taken Leonard. The parents and all the children were insured by the Liverpool Victoria Assurance Company, St. Andrew Street, Holborn. Minnie was insured for £16, 12 shillings. But out of that, about £14 went to the undertakers for her funeral. Thomas was insured under two policies totaling £33, 16 shillings, and a sixpence, which, along with the balance due on Minnie's policy, remained with the assurance company. However, one of the officials said that if the eldest son presented a claim for payment, there was no doubt the matter would be settled. No mention was found whether or not that was ever done. At the time of their application to enter Bernardo's, the orphanage, the famous orphanage, Alice only had about £5 left for the support of the children. The family's furniture was stored with friends, and the value of it was probably about £10 to £15. So basically, nobody was being able to afford to keep them. It was said all the children were healthy and apparently had been well brought up. And I think they translated the amounts pounds to shillings, and I don't really understand why they did this. But it said in 1971, £1 was 20 shillings, 1 shilling was 12 pennies or pence, 1 penny was 2 halfpennies or 4 farthings. I don't even know what a farthing is, but apparently it is 2 halfpennies. So does that mean it's a penny? Anyway, weird. That is the tragic beginning of the history that I know of my family, and that I didn't know until today. Like I said, I knew bits and pieces. I can't even imagine. It's very, very violent and sad. And I suspect my great-grandfather was of a particular personality type, and he was probably wired differently. That is my assumption that I have about that. Because, like, I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I have several people in my family who are of a particular personality type, and who I don't blame. Like, it's just simply the way they're wired, and they're susceptible to being well, I'll go through that one day about that particular personality type. Anyway, so that's Family Friday, and I apologize if it was a little bit of a downer, but the children who were, like, the 6 children that survived from my great-grandmother and great-grandfather, One of them is named Leonard, and he went to Australia. He was the oldest. And my two great uncles and my grandmother came to Canada. Reginald, Stanley, and Minnie, it's my grandmother, came to live in Canada. That's how we got here. And the two youngest stayed in England. They had a better chance of being like adopted, I guess, because they were younger. And that would be my Uncle Jim, my great Uncle Jim, and my great Aunt Doris. So out of those children, there were 2 girls and 4 boys, and 1 boy that had passed away. So, as per usual, if you're concerned about one of your friends, one of your family members, you never know. Keep your ears perked up. Keep your eyes open. Keep in contact with them. And make sure that they're doing okay. Reach out to them. And we will see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.